welcome to the next one on our list, K. And this one is called KIKAIDER drill. Now, KIKAIDER for you is probably going to be pretty obscure unless you're Japanese. So when I was a little kid, around 7, maybe 8 years old, well, my grandparents used to live in Hawaii, if you recall, and one of those trips there was during the 70s. And during the 70s in Hawaii and in Japan, there was the rise of a new action hero as a TV series called KIKAIDER. And it was the hero is this guy that changes into a kind of like an android kind of thing, kind of a predecessor to all those Transformer guys you see on that come over from Japan, like Ultraman and all these characters. So KIKAIDER was this half blue, half red guy, and you could see that he was like half android cyborg or something like that because he had machine parts sticking out. So he's like one of your first Borgs, if you were. And so as an impressionable young kid, and never seeing anything like this before in America, they have nothing like that in America. And I remember having one of these paperboard books. It was entirely in Japanese, couldn't read a thing. And the only thing that was written in English on it was the name, which was KIKAIDER, which is like the English version of, the Japanese version of the word KIKAIDER. So it's spelled KIKAIDER in phonetic Japanese. And the character, before he would change into this red and blue android, he wore like a kind of a leather jean jacket, and he rode this motorcycle, a yellow motorcycle, and had a sidecar, and he carried around a guitar because he would play a guitar, like an acoustic guitar. And so I remember this about the character. It's one of my first early memories as a kid, as having a hero, a guy that would have to go out and defeat evil. There were all these strange-looking creatures and characters, kind of like the ones that you see on like Power Rangers. And because this guy was like a predecessor to Power Rangers, and so all these characters would come, and he would have to defeat them. And anyway, it was pretty cool for a kid during the 70s. So this next item is kind of just something I'm just having fun with. It's also inspired by the nano drill, which you will see later down the road, because that's N. And but when you see the nano drill, you see how that kind of fits into the KIKAIDER drill. So what I'm going to do today is do something really odd. And we're going to make a drill out of a method out of a acoustic guitar. So what I'm going to do is, or what I've done, is I've cut the back out of this guitar. And don't worry about it, this is a really cheapo guitar, okay? This is not top of the line quality acoustic guitar. So I took the backing off, and what we're going to do is we're going to build something in here. Okay, this is going to be a door. And what I'm going to do with this section is you're actually going to see me go from start to finish. So I have to problem solve all the little things that I have to do to get this thing created. And it's going to be a drill, just so you know, drill method. And but I want you to see how if I run into a complication, how I get around it, how I solve a problem, kind of the idea that I have in mind, how that kind of takes form. because we're in the jazz part, right? We have a guitar. We're in our jazz part. We're playing. This is like art of the variation. So I understand the function. I know where it is that I'm trying to go, but I'm trying to create something entirely new. So we have to create a structure that's going to work. And so what I'm going to do is build something in here. And so the idea kind of comes from this hero guy, Jiro, who plays the KIKAIDER character in Japan, carries around a acoustic guitar. And what it is the guitar is going to be like Android. So the guitar is going to be like part machine. And it's going to make fire. Okay? Just fooling around here. Alright, so let's get started. Alright? I'm excited to get on this thing. Alright, so we're going to get started on this KIKAIDER drill made from inside a guitar. So, but I want to tell you a quick thing first. Back in the early to mid 90s, my wife, who back then, when we were just kind of dating, she's like my fiance, we used to watch on channel WNYC, which is channel 31, on a cable network at the apartment we used to live in. Part of the leasing of that station was Fuji Sankei television out of Japan, and it was always on like every morning and parts of Sunday. So on Sunday they would have like a drama, but a lot of times on Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday, they would have Iron Chef, the original Iron Chef from Japan. And so we were watching it long before it was ever on Food Network and something like that. But it was shown in Japanese with the subtitles, thank goodness, because we couldn't understand a word. But it's an amazing thing to watch. And to this day, my favorite Iron Chef is Michiba Rokusaburo, and he was the original chef that was Iron Japanese. So he wore the kind of the blue outfit. And there was a few things that I really liked about this guy. And one of the things was, and I had to look it up on Wikipedia because my memory is really failing. But according to his introduction, Michiba Rokusaburo was once considered a maverick for his philosophy of there are no borders to ingredients. And basically that's when a science crosses over into being an art, where you've played around enough with the basics and the scales and all the things that you can play around with. Like a jazz musician knows every single chord, played every single way. And so after that, you can kind of just mix and mingle and create whatever you can create. You paint with all the colors, you make your own colors. So he did the same thing with cooking. He would, cross flavors and cross ingredients. And as you know, the show was a huge hit because of the creativity that would come from these challenges. So And here we go, that pad pie is actually a universal process when it comes to figuring out a problem. You start with the problem, and in Iron Chef, of course, they have an ingredient, right, the mystery ingredient, and they would have 1 hour to create, like, was it 5 dishes or something like that, right? So there's the problem placed before you. And here our problem is, well, I have a guitar. How am I going to create a friction fire device method from a guitar, right? But here was one of the key things I really liked about Michiba over all the other chefs. You could plainly see his pad pie process going on, because what he did was, and I'm quoting out of Wikipedia again, Michiba was also skilled in calligraphy, often using precious minutes, usually at the beginning of a battle, to write a menu. On one occasion, however, Michiba forgot to write a menu and lost the battle. On another occasion, he did it at the last moment and lost as well. In an episode where his sous chef challenged Iron Chef Morimoto, Michiba explained that he wrote out his menu partly to clarify what he wanted to present and partly to inform his assistants so that they would know which ingredients to gather and prepare. So, his imaginative mind and skills allowed him on occasion to finish a battle earlier than expected and prepare extra dishes. So what he does basically is, because he actually takes a minute to clarify, he comes up already, even before the hour, he has already created 5 dishes. Now all he needs to do is actually create them. So it's not like he needs to create 5 dishes in an hour. He has already created 5 dishes. So, and then his team, all his team needs to do is now create those 5 dishes, which he's already made. Because in his mind, he has already assessed and diagnosed. He has already seen the ingredients in his head and how he was, and which is the assessment, the pattern in which he was going to throw them together to create a certain kind of taste or flavor. That's the diagnosis. And then he would write his menu. Like, he goes, what are these and what does it mean, right? He would assess and he would diagnose. So automatically in his mind, he has already created what he needs to create. And so to begin the planning process, the preparation process, he writes his menu. And so that way they can now get right into the planning stage. But he has, in his mind, has already created them. Now his team can get everything together and they could just start cooking. So now they're implementing, or they're actually just doing, they're just going in and creating it now. And of course the evaluation is by the judges. But we're not left completely in the dark as to what it is that needs to be done. His team is not in the dark as to what needs to be done. So it's an amazing process to create an instant clarification and see how it needs to be done. So basically that's what I do when I create something. Our logical mind, they say, is a tool created by evolution. And what you do with this, one of the things you can do with this tool, this thinking brain, this logical brain, this analytical brain, is to solve a problem before you actually try solving the problem physically. So in your head, you can actually go over, you can actually play things out in your head, like, would that work? Could that work? Let me try that. And then you can kind of visualize or envision and see how, when the pieces come together in your imagination, if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. So, in a way, inside your mind, you could solve a problem without actually physically trying to solve the problem. So, let me go over this one with you in like a Michiba kind of way. I'm presented with the guitar. Okay, the guitar is our mystery ingredient. So I need to create a friction fire device from the guitar. Well, as you can see, I've already decided where that friction fire device is going to go. And by assessing the guitar, what I want is the widest space possible to be able to do the back and forth reciprocation motion. So in my mind, I've already, with the ingredients, I've already decided that I'm going to get 2 pulley wheels, and they're going to go on each side of the widest part of the guitar. Okay. And I've already decided that from this bottom block here, okay, up through this area here, this is where the drill structure is going to be created. Okay. So, and it's going to be in a type 2 lever device. So the resistance is in the middle, FRE 123, right? So it's going to be on a hinge. Later you're going to see the nano drill when we get to N, and it's kind of based on that design which I've already created. But I already have those ingredients in my head, so I know that that ingredient will fit in here to help solve this problem as another flavor. So the nano drill, or this type 2 lever, pressure lever brace, works on a hinge, which I have hinged already, and that'll fit on there. However, a structure needs to be created, like a backing, and I've gotten a pine board from the hardware store, so I can create the structure, which we've already learned from the basics of the toggle drill, the one-person toggle drill, where you have a toggle drill box. So kind of a mini toggle drill box will be placed in here, and once I get set up with, and so that'll be first, is to figure out where the drill is going to be, create that structure, and then I'm going to put in where the cord is going to go with the pulleys in between, and then match that up. Once I have the drill in, I don't want to put the pulley and cord system in and then fit the drill system in. I want to do it the other way first. So the drill has to go in first, then the pulley cord system, okay? And then I have to figure out how the door is going to go back on. And I already know what that's going to be. I have a long hinge, which I already have, which is going to go here. And first I'm going to glue that on, and then I'm going to screw it on. And then this will be able to go back on here. But you're probably wondering, well, that might fall in like this, right? Well, I've already thought of that. I bought what are called biscuit joints. Biscuits are these little flat pieces that you get to, like, they help put, in carpentry, you put like dovetail joints together and all kinds of joints. You create a slot in the wood, then you put these pieces in, and they get glued in, and then it glues into another slot. Well, I'm going to be gluing these biscuits all around the edges so that it creates a shelf. And that shelf is going to stop the door from going all the way in. And then I'm going to have a little knob placed on here where I can grab the end of the door and just flip it up like this. And should be able to work. And I've already created my menu. You can't really see it, but it goes 1, 2, 3. 1, set up a stable class 2 lever and base, pressure lever brace. 2, set up the rotations back and forth reciprocation system. And 3, fit and place the door. And then I have a quick list of ingredients or the things that I needed in order to put this together. So I've already solved that problem in my head, and I've created my menu, and now I've gotten most of the ingredients together, and now we're going to cook. Alright, so there's our pad pie process, and that's one of my favorite examples, metaphors of how to explain how to do that. Because of the obvious creativity that is created from being an expert at understanding and knowing the basics of some kind of science. And so very quickly we thank Michiba Rokusaburo for his example of teaching us how to go about being very creative. So what fascinated me too was his calligraphy, because with the you remember in the beginning examples of the primal 8 basics, each one starts off with a calligraphy, right? Just to clarify what is the method that we are working on at this point in time. So maybe my calligraphy now needs to be the guitar. Alright, let's get started on this thing. Alright, so here we go. Now the first thing I want to do is create the structure of the drill. And it's going to be a class 2 pressure lever brace. So from this block here, okay, I'm going to place another base, which is going to be glued in. And on that base is also going to be a reloading base. All right. Then I'm going to put a back wall here. And what I have to do is, because we have this area that holds the strings up front, it's held in place with 2 screws, but it also has an extra wood backing. So what I'm going to do is cut a space here to make room for the wood that's going to go up this way. Okay, and on top here, once all this is set and glued in, we're going to place the actual class 2 lever, pressure lever brace, which is the hinge on top. So first I'm going to cut this out, and then we're going to start cutting the pine board, which I have here, into the correct size pieces to be glued in and set in. All right, let's do that. Okay, so I took out this piece in the center, and it turns out it was also glued in, not just screwed in by the sides. So now we're going to cut our board, our pine board, in pieces for them to be able to fit. And how wide do I want this pine board? Well, this pine board, I want it as wide as this 2-inch hinge. Okay, so I'm going to measure out 2 inches wide on this board, and I'm going to make them the length they need to be for the base, the reloading base, and the back board, as well as the pressure lever brace piece itself, and that too is also going to have be set in for the brace. So I'm going to need for that to be pretty thick. I might make that twice the thickness. Alright, so let's cut these pieces out. Okay, so I've done my measurements, and I figured out that my back brace is going to be 8 inches. I'm going to need two 2.5-inch pieces for the base and two 2-inch pieces for the top. So I'm going to cut these out, and then I also have to get them to the appropriate width. Okay. So let's cut these out. Okay, I've cut my pieces to the lengths that I need, and now I need to make them the width that they need to be in order to fit in between this space here. Okay, all around. So I'm going to do that now. As you can see, I cut these pieces on the bandsaw, and I did sand them down a little bit on the rough edges. Now, I do have a bit of a complication here. If you look at the back, it has a raised shelf area, and this happens on all the pieces, if you could see. Okay. Now, when I lay this to glue this on the guitar, it's going to be lying uneven. So what I'm going to do is actually take my knife and actually just whittle this shelf down to make it flat, and then I'm just going to throw it on the belt sander real quick. So I'm going to do that right now. Here we go. Alright, so I fixed up my pieces. Okay. Sanded the back, as you saw. So I figure actually I only need one for the base. I'll carve out where the reloading base needs to fit in there, and that'll get glued in. Here's the back. Oops. Actually, that's going to go in first. I can carve that down a little bit. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take probably about 1/8 of an inch off the top of here, so that it fits right underneath this bar. And then it'll fit flush with the base. So you kind of do this as you go along. And then we're going to fit the hinge to the back, and then set up for the pressure lever brace. Alright? So I'm going to glue in the base after I've carved out where the reloading base is going to go. Okay? I'm going to cut 1/4 inch off the top here and fit that in. We're going to glue that in. And then we're going to set up for our pressure lever brace, class 2. Okay? Alright, so I've carved out with the bandsaw the reloading base. Okay, so that's going to get glued in there, just like that. And as you can see, the reload, this one's pine, drops right into the slot, just like that, ready to go. I took a 1/4 inch off the top of the back brace, and that fits perfectly right in there along this bar which came with the guitar. So all this is going to get glued in right now. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I've glued in the sections of the reloading base and the back with epoxy. Okay, and so I've secured the base with the quick clamp, and I have my sanding block and tape measure as weights to sit on the back brace. And what we're going to do is we're going to wait for that to dry. Alright, so we'll come back once that's ready. Okay, we're still taking off the weights and the clamp. Now our reloading base is all good to go. Okay, our backing is here, and it's going to receive the hinge for the pressure lever brace. Okay. Alright, just gonna go here. And like this. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna glue and also screw these in and get these set. Okay. Then we have to measure out the drill, the length of the drill, so that it is appropriate, that it's evenly balanced between the pressure lever brace and the base, the reloading base. Okay. Then after that is all situated, we're going to work on our pulley cord system, which goes in between here. Okay? Alright, let's get this worked in here. So I've screwed in and glued, epoxied, the pressure lever brace top to the hinge. However, as you can see, the screws go all the way through the top. So I'm going to wait for this to dry, and then I'm going to put these screws on my grind wheel and flatten them down to get rid of those points. Okay? So we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to do that on the grind wheel. Alright, so the glue is dry, and I took the points down on my grind wheel already, so that's done. Okay. So we have to kind of make it ready for it being a Class 2 pressure lever brace. So here we have the fulcrum on this end. The resistance is going to be here in the middle. I'm going to add another piece here. We're going to glue another piece for the brace. And the effort is going to be on the end. So what are we going to use for effort? Well, we're going to use something elastic. And I have here some hook screws. So what I'm going to do is take my tiny drill bit, and we're going to drill down into the pressure lever brace, in order to place the hook screw. I don't like just screwing screws into wood, because a lot of times what that does is it just splits the wood. So first we make a space for the screw. Okay. And then we'll insert the screw inside. And we'll try and get that in there as deep as we can. And I need a pair of pliers. Oh, this wrench will do for the moment. So we're going to work that all the way in, all the way to the back. It can't stick out too much because it may get in the way of our stroke for when we're using the pulley cord, which we'll see later. Oops. Get that right all the way to the bottom there. Okay. And there we go. There's our hook in. Now, I'm going to take my other 2x2 here, and I'm going to cut it down so that it doesn't lay over the hinge. I'm going to put the wood to the wood here and glue that together. But first I have to cut it down to the appropriate size. So while I have it right here, I'm just going to mark it with my pencil. I'm going to put it on the bandsaw and take it down. Okay, so I've taken down that 2x2 piece, and I also put it on the belt sander to clean up those sharp edges. So we're going to take the epoxy and we're going to lay that down here on our bottom of our pressure lever brace. And what this section is going to be is this is going to contain the whole socket for the brace. Okay. That around. And what we'll do is we'll secure that with the quick clamp. And we're going to let that dry. Okay, we'll be back. Alright, so our pressure lever brace is glued together. So while we're here at this stage, what I'm going to do is go ahead and drill a socket hole here and drill a socket hole, for the base in this reloading base piece. Okay, so I think I'm going to do that with some Forstner bits. So I think we'll do 1/2 for the top, and we're going to do the 3/8 for the base. Alright, so let's do that. Okay, so I've put the socket hole in for the brace end, and I put a quick 3/8 inch hole for the base end, the reloading base. Now I need to get another hook screw into the base part to receive the elastic, which is going to be the effort on the Class 2 lever brace. But what I want to do first is, because there's not much space down here, okay, and the hook screws, if you could see, they have a little piece that sticks out here. I'm going to cut that piece off, alright, and I'm going to do that with the Dremel, which I have here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll do this real quick. Okay. So that's hot, but as you can see, I took the little piece off the end just to make some room. So what's next is I need to make a space hole for the hook screw to go in, just like I did with the pressure lever brace, because I don't want any kind of wood to split. Okay. Let's take our hook screw, work that in. Okay, so that screw popped through the bottom. So you know what we're going to do? We're just going to cut that off right here with the Dremel. So we've taken that off, okay, so now it's flush. And now we have our hook screw a little bit off to the side, but in front of our reloading base, okay. So the next thing we have to do is we have to glue and screw in the pressure lever brace to the back brace, I guess what we'll call that. Alright, so let's do that now. So here's our pressure lever brace. It's glued in, screwed in, and what we're going to do is we're just going to wait and let that dry. Now what we have to do next, while we're waiting for this to dry, is I'm going to match up a spindle. And it's going to be a reloading spindle, and it's going to be a torque reloading spindle. So it's going to be, the diameter of the spindle itself is going to be a little larger than the reload that goes in, so that it has turning power. And so while that's drying, I'm going to go measure one. Alright, be right back. Okay, so you may recall this spindle from the bow drill section. It's entirely made of bamboo. This is a bamboo tube with a bamboo brace insert. Okay, and what we have here is the bottom is quartered slightly. You can see the small cuts in there. We have a our famous hose clamp, and we have some pieces, some cut sections of bamboo chopstick, 3/8 inch. So we're going to take one of those. They're 2 inches long, and we're going to fit that right in there. And I have it measured out already, so that when the reloading base goes in, okay, and that'll fit like that, right in there, and it'll all be very stable. once it's in there. Okay. So I'm going to tighten down this reload, spindle reload, so it doesn't crack any further. Alright. And I'm going to create a better space inside the pressure lever brace for the spindle. I think we'll use a 3/8. So we have a 1/2 inch Forstner hole, but we're going to use a 3/8 inch. .3/8 inch drill bit hole to kind of straighten out the axis on that. And there we go. All right. So the next thing we have to work on, this is the second part, is the pulley cord system. So here's my plan. I'm going to cut some slots in the side, and I'm going to fit the pulleys through the wall and into the side. It's going to be epoxied in, and through this hole here we have our 1/2 inch. What else? We have our 1/2 inch dowel, okay, which is oak. It's going to fit through there. We're going to epoxy that so that that can't go back through the wall. That's going to stop it. Okay. Alright, so let's get started on that. Okay, so I've marked out the space. It's kind of hard to see. I've marked out the space that I'm going to cut out on each side, here and here. So what I'm going to do is take the Dremel and see if we can't cut a little bit of that section out. Actually, that's probably not going to fit. Let's see. Oh, I'll change the bit. I'm going to change the bit to a rasp cutting bit. So let me go do that. Right. Okay, so I've put the slots in on both sides. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take our 1/2 inch dowel and I'm going to cut 1 inch sections. They're going to go through here, and what that's going to do is we're going to glue in the dowel and glue the whole thing to the guitar. Okay, now the dowel is going to keep the pulley from pulling through the wall, and the epoxy should take care of the rest. Now this is a real cheap guitar. It's not well made. It's very flimsy. The walls, I'll tell you right now, are extremely flexible and thin and ready to break. So I'm going to be using a lot of epoxy all around the surrounding area to really brace these things in, to be able to withstand the unilateral forces, the pressures of the cord going back and forth, the pulling. Alright, so I'm going to epoxy these in now and see where it goes from there. Okay, the first step I'm going to do is push a pulley through one side, put the dowel in, and glue the dowel and glue the pulley on that one side, on the outside around, to the guitar. And I'm going to let that sit for a while. And then I'm going to do the other side. And then I'm going to be doing the insides of the guitar. I'll be epoxying the insides after I've epoxied the outsides to make sure that they're settled in. Okay, so I'm going to do that now. I've come to realize that this hook in front, if I put an elastic in front, it's going to interfere with my ability to actually be able to pull the cord back and forth. So what I'm going to do is pull this out, and what I'm going to do instead is take advantage of these two screws that hold the strings in place here in the front. So I'm going to bend these screws down just a little bit, not enough, too much, because I'm afraid they may break and snap off. But I'm going to bend them down a little bit on each side, and then what I'll do is I'll have the elastic run from one side down this way and one side down this way, and then that's not going to interfere with the the cord going back and forth. So I'm going to remove this one hook here, and then I'm going to bend down the other screws. Now the glue from on both pulleys is all dried and set. So I think we're ready to do a test run to get the cord to balance with the drill system. Okay, so let's bend these screws down a little bit and try not to break them. Okay, that's one. And that's two. So what we'll do is, I'm going to get some stronger rubber bands, and the rubber bands will, let's put that drill back in. So, I think that needs to be bent just a little bit more. That catches like that. There we go. You know what? I may put a small nail here on each side to hold up the rubber band this way to keep it away from the hose clamp that's spinning. I think that would be a safer bet. So you run into these complications and you have to fix them as they go. See how that catches on the rubber bands? I think I'm going to put two small nails on each side here as well. Alright, and then we're going to match up the cord. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so I've hammered in two tacks that I found. So let's put that drill back in. Reloading base. Put the drill in. Okay. And the rubber bands should go through the hook, around the tack, and to the screw. Just like that. On the hook, around the tack, to the screw. And there's our effort. Oops. And there's our effort on the end. Okay. So we have the hook and the rubber band, the elastic goes around the tack to create some space away from the hose clamp, spinning hose clamp, to the screws. There we go. Alright, now let's get to the cord. So we're going to start with some plain white nylon cord. I'm going to burn the ends so that they don't fray. Just melt them down a little bit. Careful not to burn ourselves. Alright. And so these are going to run through here, through the pulley system, and it's going to wrap around a few times like your Egyptian drill or Tala drill. Okay. 3 times might be enough. And it goes through the other pulley. Okay. And that should get it to spin. Alright. What we need to do now is to have this tightened down, and then what I need is so what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a toggle and tie the cord to that, and that way we're going to be able to strum this back and forth. Okay. So let's see. Maybe we'll use our oak stick. So let's get a, let's say 4-inch section of toggle. I'm going to cut that, be right back. So my son Jake helped hold the toggle for me while I tied it on here. So I have to figure out first I have to balance out the elasticity of the rubber bands to get the correct pressure. So I'm going to do that first, and then we're going to come back and we're going to test this thing. What I'm going to do too while we're at it is I'm going to go ahead and put a notch inside the reloading base. Okay, be right back. Okay, so what I've done is I've doubled up the rubber bands. I folded them in half actually and went around, and there was only enough space to go to the tacks themselves instead of the hook. But either way, everything is out of the way and ready to go. So I'm hoping this cord pulley system holds up and the walls don't break. They're so fragile. But I think we're ready to give it a go. I put a notch in the reloading base. So it's a bamboo reload. So I think we're ready to give it a shot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to secure this against the table here. And back my chair up. And I'm going to hold this against my hip this way. And it's going to be like we're playing the guitar in a sense. So playing like an air guitar. And it's smoking pretty good. starting to fill with dust. Just keep it nice and steady. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Starting to move on. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. A little bit more speed. Dust looks good, but we're almost there. It's nice and warmed up, but I gotta keep going. What I'm gonna do is push that dust back in there. It's taking a while to collect. Okay, here we go again. Keep sliding. All right, see what you got. Everything looks good, but it's not ignited. Should we keep going? Tightening up the cord with my grip. Nope, almost. Okay. All right. Well, my reload is really short now, so I have to put in a new reload. See how far down the pressure lever brace has gone? It's tilting downward. So let's throw in a new one. I'm going to try and save all the dust and try again. Okay, here we go. So I changed the core too. We have a spindle reload of Yucca and a base, reloading base of Sodal. I didn't really mate it, but I put a notch in already. And I'm going to fill the notch with a little bit of some chewed up grapevine shreddings from the table saw, just to kind of start catching the coal dust because it's a little high. All right, and let's give it a shot, shall we? I'm hoping the pressure adjustment that I made with the elastics is correct. Seems a little light, so I'm gonna go a little heavier with the pressure. Hopefully it's not too much, but it's hard to work towards finding that golden mean of all the pieces. All right. think we're going to do it this time. Yeah, I think we got our coal. So there we go. And this is our KIKAIDER drill. There we go. Not too shabby. All right. So let's finish up. I think now we'll put the door on, now that we know that everything is all settled in and works. So I have here some leftover hinge from the fire plow reloading base. Okay. So that hinge is used to, you know, start your groove. Well, I have, it was a pretty long hinge, so I have this left over. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this down here, and we'll glue that in, screw that in. Maybe it only needs to be glued in. I don't think I need to use the screws. Well, I'll tell you what, this wood is so thin and so flimsy that I think we'll just settle for the epoxy. So let me cut this to size, and we'll start gluing it on. Okay, as well as the biscuits. Where's those biscuits? We're going to glue those biscuits on and create that shelf like I talked about. Okay? Alright, here we go. Okay, so I've glued the neck back on. Okay, so that should be nice and strong again. Now I've got these clips here holding the biscuits. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, as you can see. And what I did was I glued some biscuits down on the bottom here of the reloading base, okay, to create a better shelf for where it fits right there. And I left a space opening there for the coal as well. So we're going to let that sit, and then we're going to do, we're going to put the door on, and then get the hinge matched when the door is placed the way it's supposed to be, and glue that in. Okay, let's let this sit. Okay, so the biscuits are holding well. You can see one here, one here, one in here. Okay, so the door, now that the guitar started to push in a little bit from the drilling, so I had to shave a little bit off to one side, but the door seems to fit okay. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is mix up some glue, and we're going to glue on our hinge. So let's mix up the glue and get this on. Alright, so our door's on. Okay. And I have a little toggle on here, glued on, just to lift the door. Now that everything is all together, we're going to do an official coal. Same core 2, sodal base, and yucca spindle reload. Tighten that up a little bit. There we go. The cord was a little loose. And there is our official coal with the completed KIKAIDER drill. You can see that smoking pretty good. And there's our There's our coal. Alright. Door works. And we did it according to our menu. 1, 2, 3. We did our drill system. Then we put in the cord pulley system. And then the door. Okay. So there we go. The KIKAIDER drill. And technically, it still plays. It's definitely out of tune, but but it would work. All right. All right. Let's finish up. So that's the KIKAIDER drill, named after one of my old childhood folk heroes, KIKAIDER. So back to Michiba. As we finish up, Michiba was used a trademark ingredient of his called Inochi no Dashi, or broth of vigor. So it was a combination of katsuobushi, which is skipjack tuna shavings, and a form of kelp called konbu. And he used this in almost every Iron Chef battle. So when Michiba left, and his successor, one of his successors, Morimoto, took over. Morimoto also took on Michiba's ideas, philosophy of no borders to ingredients, and took it to another level. But he was so supportive that when he was battling Chef Bobby Flay, Morimoto, Michiba gave Morimoto, and this is in New York, he flew to New York to support him in this. Michiba gave Morimoto, again I'm quoting from Wikipedia, Michiba gave Morimoto a large box of the katsuobushi flakes with a hand calligraphied message: respect the old, but seek out the new. And that's what we've done here today with the KIKAIDER drill. So, taking our ancient friction fire need and putting it together with the idea of a childhood memory. Okay, KIKAIDER, folk hero. All right. Next on our list is L, the lathe drill. Actually, one of the first civilized variations I ever created was the lathe drill. I thought it back up in 2007. 2007, I thought it up. I still have notes from it where I was getting information off the internet and things like that. So, but so the next up is L, lathe drill. All right, and you're gonna enjoy that one too. It's a surprising one. All right, let's keep going.